Men in female dominated industries. What are some challenges you've had to overcome and how did you do it? My brother is a nurse. Actually, he describes it as almost night and day, the differences between how he's treated at work and when he's just out and about. At work all his patients assume he is, even after being corrected. The doctor, especially when his female co-workers are present. He told me a story about how they had an elderly man kept for a few nights after a heart attack, and whenever he'd walk in with the attending physician, who happened to be a woman, he'd always end up having to repeat what the doctor said because the guy just refused to listen to her outside of work. People are weird too. He says people will often assume he's gay when he mentions he's a nurse. The guy is married with 2 kids. People are weird, but he takes it in stride. Never the type to wince from a few jokes here and there. Have a friend who is a nurse. He's huge though, buff and tough looking. They stuck him on the mental health floor because he's one of the only nurses that can pick up a patient and hold them down if need be. I've worked for a few non-profits out of college. It's heavily female dominated. I'm typically always pulled from my actual job to help with heavy lifting and other manual labor. More specifically, I used to work for Big Brothers Big Sisters. This would require me to sometime have to go to the kids' school so I could do their match support. Despite how many times I called, emailed the faculty in advance and forwarded parental permission for me to talk to their kid in school, I was always interrogated at length by the front office. However, when women would come in, the front office would typically just trust them on a whim. It wasn't the biggest deal, but the bias was there. I will say that another issue with BBBS is the lack of men who want to volunteer in the first place because they are so terrified to be seen with a kid that isn't their own. We had over 100 kids in need of male mentors, and over 100 female mentors wanting a mentee. It was a balancing act. So, dudes, if you're out there, sign up to be a big. After moving away for another job, I signed up to be a big brother and it's been a blast. I get to go to museums and parks every other week and spend time with a great lil dude. I'm a therapist at a large community-based mental health organization and one of 2 males out of a staff of almost 100. I was told I was a diversity hire due to being male because the organization needed more guy clinicians to work with male clients. I get treated the same as everyone else. The only comments I get are about how unorthodox my clinical style is. I'm an accountant. Here in Russia, it's mostly women's field. I feel good in such company mostly, but I have to listen a lot stories about clothes, cosmetic, children, etc. I read professional magazines where ads are all about the same. Women's clothes, cosmetic. Upvoting because this reads in stereotypical Russian. I was the only guy in an office doing office clerical work etc, and there were challenges of women attaching to me and wanting me to be their work husband. They assumed I should bring them treats, coffee, take them to lunch, and pay for their lunch. It was pretty stressful having daily fights about why I wouldn't do things like that for them. Other women would assume I was gay and make jokes about that, and other women would do a lot of sexual teasing, which was also stressful as they would freak out if I made any moves. Other women would do a lot of sexual teasing, which was also stressful as they would freak out if I made any moves. That is what we call sexual harassment. I work at Victoria's Secret. There have been times where I've tried to help a female male customer and he has refused and asked for one of my female co-workers. No harm done to me, I just call for a female co-worker and move on. I've also been asked for a guy's opinion on lingerie from customers. A couple times a male customer walks straight to me instead of a female co-worker and asks for help. Goes both ways. More positive encounters than negative. No one has assumed I'm gay so far. A lot of customers ask if I like working there and if I had trouble with the lingerie or other questions like that. Sometimes I get what I assume a shy customer when I'm on register and they get a little flustered as I scan and bag their lacy underwear. LOL, I have been accused of peeking at a customer in the fitting room once. My store manager got involved and defended me because the customer walked out of the fitting rooms onto the sales floor in the bra she was trying on as I was walking past the entrance. She also explained that male workers aren't allowed in the fitting room during store hours unless we are needed for something specific, and a manager warns everyone in there that a male worker is coming in and to stay inside their fitting rooms. I enjoy working there. I always joke with my co-workers as they talk about how cute this bra looks and how certain items fit. I'll chime in and say I love the color and it fits a little too tight on me and stuff like that. I've never had a problem with my co-workers about me being a guy working there. I can totally see why a guy would go to you. If you're going in for the first time and maybe a bit embarrassed trying to get a gift, it would be easier to speak to another guy. At least that'd be how I would feel about it. I was a male nanny, for many years. It was a lot harder for me to get jobs. Most of the positions I got were for kids whose dads were no longer in the picture and needed a male influence, or disabled children who needed someone stronger for transfers and whatnot. Besides getting a job, I had to deal with everyone thinking I was a pedophile when we would go to the park. I would play on the play structure with the kids I watched because that was my jobs. Other kids would try to join because we would be having a great time, but I quickly learned to not allow this due to the uncomfortable nature of mothers getting off their phone but to grab their kid while shooting me death glares. It also didn't help that I didn't look like any of the kids I would watch due to being a ginger with a big beard. I was a wedding photographer for about 8 years until I just burned out. Not that most photographers are women, but you spend the majority of your day around the bride and her wedding party. Most of the time you're working with a female wedding planner, female hairstylists for the updos, and pro makeup artists, which, you guessed it, are also female. Haha. It's chill. I know lots of things about different types of manicures, all the makeup brands, all the major shoe designers. Honestly, I just find it very easy to talk to women. Haha. There was a laundry detergent commercial where a bride was complaining that the train of her dress was ruined from dragging it around the reception all night, and I said, oh yeah, like they didn't bustle her dress in a room full of people and everyone looked at me like I had two heads. Worked at bench for about a year and change. If you know what it is, it's usually 85% women's wear, 10% kids wear, and the rest guys. I was the only guy there for a while. I would be trying to make a sale when one of the girls would ask me to grab something heavy from the back. This wouldn't be an issue if they didn't systematically take my sales each time and not allow me to cash out my own sales, telling the manager I don't know how to work the till. Now I couldn't refuse them. They'd make some snide remark and the person would walk away thinking I'm just an insensitive prick. If I did do it, I'd lose the sale. Lasted a while there, but when your hours correlate to your sales and you're not making any, time to find someplace else. Of course, Jamantha, I'll be happy to help you as soon as I finish with this customer. Customer service is our primary goal. After all, if you can't beat the passive aggressiveness, join it. Not me, but my friend used to be a nurse and he said that male nurses were always the go-to nurses for heavy lifting and restraining patients. He also said the workplace gossip was unbearable and that the male nurses were eye candy to the female nurses. I mean, I can honestly understand the restraining patients thing. The average woman really doesn't stand a chance against a fully grown man. Women touching my shoulders and saying inappropriate things that make me uncomfortable. If another employee decided to report it to HR, it would look worse for me than it would for the woman. It's especially worse if someone thinks that such behavior is the root of any perceived favoritism, since I work in administration. Everyone seems to like the idea of a male elementary school teacher. However, several of my parents were very uncomfortable with the arrangement. I've lost 2 students this year alone because the parents didn't want their daughters to have a male teacher. I hope they don't grow up to be sexists too. Pulling their children from their friends will do more damage than a male teacher ever could. Haha. What idiots. I worked reception at a dog groomers. Half of the customers thought I was gay. The owner threatened to fire me multiple times over not putting the toilet seat down. And oh boy, were those ladies vulgar when it came to the sex talk. On top of that, the owner sympathizes with Nazi Germany due to being of German heritage. Worked in a factory where a good 95% of employees were women. Was constantly asked to do the heavy lifting. Was constantly told to be careful and oh my god, don't lift that alone. So I was doing 90% of the physical labor and being babied at the same time. That was pretty balls, but I didn't really care. Male hairdresser here. I work at the salon where I am the only male employee, and 90% of our clientele is female. Most clients assume I am gay, so I try to work my wife into the conversation as soon as possible. I still miss my hairdresser. He was the only one who would shut the frick up and understood what make it look good without the need to spend hours on it every morning meant. I work in a female-dominated office. Coming from a male-dominated office, it's weird how people don't like to talk out problems here. Conflicts is actively avoided and they will smile obsequiously and lie to my face to avoid conflict. Contradicting someone in the process of trying to reach a better solution is seen as like a challenge of their intelligence authority. Oh my god, this drove me up the wall at my old job, healthcare, when we'd have meetings and I'd offer up in-depth solutions to problems that needed to be addressed. People looked at me with borderline disgust because my idea wasn't just, well, we need to work as a team. Sorry if I'm not a firm believer in the results of hollow platitudes. Crap. Male massage therapist here. An overwhelming amount of therapists and clients are female. Furthermore, most clients, male or female, will tend to prefer female therapists for various reasons. I make for it by doing an outcome-based medical massage that integrates deep tissue massage, myofascial release, and neuromuscular therapy. This allows me to target specific symptoms and treat them much more effectively than a typical massage therapist. Therefore, clients with chronic pain or other symptoms will seek me out for relief. I have had a few clients who typically only see female therapists, with me being the exception to the rule. Being professional, courteous, and being a dang good massage therapist also help. I would never be massaged by a woman. We need that strength. When my body's in need, I want a man to really get in there. Male teacher in an elementary school. I'm the only white male on staff here. A few admin staff are black men, and there is one black male teacher on staff. Other than that, all women. I've had misandrist principals say things like, "You're the exception 518,080, but most men just cannot handle teaching in an elementary school." I just mentally say frick you and your sexism and continue on my way because the kids need a decent teacher, making sure to help out the other male teacher. He's a first year teacher, and our students can be difficult, as much as I can. Crazy thing is the principal loves me and always rates me highly in my observations. I thought 518,080 was some type of prison-like number like in Les Mis when they called him 24,601. Guy in HR. Work in public sector. I am definitely biased but find a lot of the guys, you know, guys who dig ditches all day, seem pretty comfortable around me. Oftentimes if I go out to the public works shops and start talking to the workers, someone will throw some typical shop banter at me. I'll usually spit it right back though. Not an industry per se, but I worked as a CSR receptionist. I'm sure there's a more politically correct term, but it's what I called myself for a couple of years, and the biggest challenge for me was dealing with other men on a daily basis. The woman who had my job before me was sexy, beautiful and young. It's okay, I eventually married her. She was now my manager, and they all wanted to deal with her. I would get the looks of pity that said, "Oh, you can't cut in a real man's job." Some of them would call and ask for her, just have her transfer them to the depth person they needed to talk to. It wasn't a majority of men, but enough that it was causing my boss future wife issues with getting her job done. Once I had the confidence, I knew what I was doing and what the client needed. I became a wall that they couldn't get past unless they had problem I couldn't solve it. It eventually got a point the clients appreciated what I could do for them and I was the receptionist. As far as their pity looks go, I had worked my butt off to get out the weather and back-breaking labor. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I am a general manager at an arts and crafts store. I've been doing it for over a decade, yet I still will often get questions like, "Is there a girl here who knows how to knit?" or "I don't know if you would know anything about insert stereotypical female craft as a guy." But B, I have tried about every craft in this store. I at one point was the only associate who knew how to knit in the store. I have tried many of the Pinterest or Etsy ideas you see on Facebook, and if I haven't done the craft, then I 1. Know how to read a box, and 2. Have helped literally hundreds of women do that same stupid craft. Nursing. The complaining and gossip. Just do your job and keep your mouth shut when being reprimanded. I have a military background, so these things come second nature. Working with men though, they just complained about women, so complaining is universal. I work for a large medical laboratory company where something like 95% of non-management employees are female. I lift everything heavy. Get told not to lift that by yourself. Oh, you're just going to muscle it up, big guy. Usually I don't mind, but I also can't sit by while my late 50s female supervisors are trying to use a dolly to move a 400-pound filing cabinet. They're the age of my mom, but Jesus, don't act so surprised. Just say thanks. Don't baby me. Also from patients I get the whole, oh you have such a gentle touch for a man. Like, I'm not even particularly tall, or muscular, or fat, but God forbid a man has any finesse with anything. Thanks for letting me vent. I work as one of only 2 men in a call center with almost 30 employees. The other departments are about 90% women as well. The biggest challenge? Trying not to fall in love every time I turn the corner. Almost every woman here is beautiful. Stay away from them. Sexy time with co-workers causes way more problems than it's worth. I speak from experience. Worked as support staff in the hospitality industry. Would often be working and happen upon super blunt ladies talk but then have it called out like you can handle it or oops bromedia's here. Once or twice I was objectified by virtue of being the only man in the area, or was encouraged to stay late to fix something and then told I had nice cologne by an older woman I wasn't attracted to. I think every man needs to experience being hit on by a woman he's not attracted to. Builds empathy for women who have to deal with it all the time with much higher stakes. Other than that, a room full of estrogen can be just as steamy as a room full of testosterone. But most people just want to do their jobs and go home. Performing arts assistant. I'll tell you, I have never met a group of girls that have been so mean-spirited with the most disgusting and sexist attitude to me and to the few other men. Apparently being one of the few male teachers, even only for a few weeks, in drama performing arts class automatically grants you homophobic, sexist and creative insults. I didn't do anything and I knew this was only going to be a rocky few weeks. It was just for the experience. So I tried to make it enjoyable for everyone and do whatever I can do to help. But literally, the first question I got from the class was, "What's it like being gay?" and shortly met with giggles from them. That took me by surprise. Any help or criticism I would offer would be met with denial or tantrums. One time, I told one student to stop looking to the side too much and focus on the audience. She rolled her eyes, said whatever, and was later crying in the girls' toilets telling everyone that I was being too strict. I was told by one of the staff members to tone it down. Most were star hungry and wanted the lead or roles with a lot of attention. When handing out roles and auditions, the same people with terrible behavior would all of a sudden play nice and being really brown nosy. I didn't like it and would do auditions for the special roles. Surprise! Those pupils who didn't get the roles they wanted reverted to their bad tropes. When writing them up or telling my co-worker about them was met with no punishment. I hated it that the course leader was so uninterested and did nothing to punish those involved. I was told, be a man instead. I tell you, I would do everything in my power to make sure that any misbehavior and disgusting comments would be sorted. Detention, removal from class, anything. But the stuff that this class got away with was mind-boggling. I didn't realize that it might have been a sexist thing was years later. I didn't say goodbye on my last day. They were getting ready for play. The only thing I did was secretly rip down the posters that were on the walls around the center on the last day and tell others to not go see them. They were going to perform to an elderly care home. And I crap you not, wanted people inside the care home to fricking pay them. Couldn't pay? Well, just lock them in their rooms or leave them outside for few hours then. Frick that class. I'm a teacher, but I don't personally experience much negativity. The only challenge that I have come across because of my gender is the fact that the men's restroom has only one stall and one urinal, while the women's restroom has 4 stalls. It's balls. As a woman in engineering, we have same thing going on with having smaller bathrooms than the men. I never really thought of it as an issue because fewer people genuinely need fewer toilets. Honestly, the only real difficulty is convincing people I'm not the kid's father. Their 5-year-old playmates can't get their head around it, but there are also adults who think it's more likely that I'm an butthole with a weird sense of humor than I'm a nanny. Though to be fair, that also has a lot to do with the fact that I'm white. It's hard to get interviews, but that just weeds out people who would be uncomfortable with a 250-pound beardie running around with their kids all day. I don't need that kind of negativity. Not an industry exactly, but I work in a store with 2 guys and about 10 girls. Like many of the other replies on this thread, the whole idea of expecting men to do all the heavy lifting really gets to me. Now I'm a pretty big guy, 6 foot 2 inches, and not to blow my own horn, but I'm pretty physically fit. I make the effort to eat right and go to the gym regularly. A lot of the women there are, to put it politely, not in the best physical shape. So when we get a delivery of several hundred large boxes or bags each weighing 20 kilograms, and guess who gets the job of hauling most of it to where it needs to go? I get so many comments like it must be so nice being a man and being as capable as you are. While men generally are somewhat stronger, I'm this physically capable because I take care of my body and put the effort in rather than eating McDonald's for lunch every day then wondering why I feel so run down. The gender-based division of labor in some places really isn't okay. 911 dispatch center, generally 90% female. At one point, there were 2 guys on a shift. I miss that. During renovation, he and I had to do all the lifting, which sucked because he was not a physical type of guy. It freaking sucked. In the years since, I had to sleep with my boss to keep my job and be essentially at her beck and call and help her with her side business, setting up her PayPal, help with website. And no, HR or IA isn't here to freaking help the employee. They're there to protect the company business. I prodded a few times here and there and was laughed off with "you should be so lucky." So yeah, frick your boss or get fired and blacklisted. I did a degree in English and creative writing. The ratio of women to men was 20-1. In each seminar we had to present a piece of work. Someone else would read it aloud. One week we had to do screenplays. I had to read every male part. One girl had written a gay/fiction piece, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fanfic between Spike and Angel, in front of a room full of women, including my future wife. I had to seduce and have gay sex with myself. So I guess you weren't very convincing to yourself during the whole thing. Haha. I'm a nurse. It's great. Pros: I'm left out of the gossip, so everyone likes me. There's few guys around saying sexist things about friends and co-workers, a problem in male-dominated fields. That puts you in an awkward position. Cons: it's hard to make close friendships, but not impossible. Left out of gossip. No close friendships. Sounds ideal. I am now going to apply for nursing school. I work in nursing, which is female dominated. One thing I've learned is that when it comes to talk about sex, the sitcoms have it backwards. They always depict guys as telling sex stories and girls as being so embarrassed. Guys, after getting lucky, might give up a wink or a congratulatory elbow in the ribs to their friends. Girls, on the other hand, talk about how good he was, what he looked like naked, all of his blemishes, his size, the duration of the sex, the technique, his insecurities, and all the secrets he told her when they were done. Also, women are dang perverts. Male teacher worked with ages 2 to 18. Older kids were always more willing to fight back, machismo upbringing, and younger kids want to be held and babied a lot. Women will always gossip but never talk with you about it since you're a guy. I know I'm due candy for a few since there's so few dudes. Most keep their heads low and hold out for retire in my experience. Work in managed care, 80% female. In 20+ years I have reported to a man less than 2 years cumulative. I am professional, mid-management. Turns out women bosses are kinda like male bosses. Some are great while others are horrid. Who knew? If you do good work, the good ones take care of you and the bad ones are jealous or worse. In general, only a few things are different. I am not sure if I adapted my style or just prefer this, but at this point I much prefer working for a woman. I like to chat a little about family and good books before getting down to business, and my male bosses seem puzzled by this. My actual work style doesn't change much. My goal is always to make my boss look good. Only drawback is HR has the same diversity goals as everywhere else, so there are programs to develop women leaders, etc. I don't necessarily disagree with these for STEM fields and such where women are underrepresented, but they are ridiculous when most of the leadership is already female. Fussing about it would do me no good. But inroads would never have been made if good men had not stood up for equality. I know my salary is lower than some peers that I outperform, which is as irksome to me as it would be to anyone else based on any other reason than merit. At some point the women need to stand up and say we made it. Let's just judge on the content of character now. They have sons. After all, regardless, the good bosses male and female find ways to reward based on merit despite HR. I've done alright. I work in the service industry as a manager. Most of the people I manage are female. I have to defend myself from being accused of sexism a lot more than you would think. Prime example, my team currently has 25 wait staff and 6 bartenders. All my bartenders are male. I do not specifically want male bartenders, but I only get applications from male bartenders. Personally, I think this is because much more men than women choose bartending as a career. Thus there are far less qualified female bartenders. I have to explain this to guests at least once a week. Also, reverse sexism is very much a thing. I call it that. It is probably not a real term, but what I mean, if you hadn't caught on, is women being sexist towards men. Of course this is just regular sexism, but 9/10 times when we talk about sexism, we mean sexism towards women. Anyway, every dang day it happens at least once that I ask a girl to do something and the reply is ask John to do that. It's a man's job. This often involves carrying something heavy. Everyone seems perfectly fine with labeling something as a man's job because it involves hard physical labor, therefore falling back on the old-fashioned view that men have to carry out hard physical work. With that same logic, I should be perfectly fine asking a girl to clean something, because, with that same logic, that's obviously a woman's job. But God help me if I actually phrase it that way. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.